Hello and welcome to the Student StarCraft AI Tournament. I'm Nightcat and I'll be your host for today's cast. And for the first game we have a recommended game. It is Purple Wave in the bottom left against Adias in the bottom right here. I'm gonna have to hide the overlay to show the base there, but this is on Circuit Breaker, so looking forward to seeing what we have happen on this game. A nice little TVP. We've got the first pylon going down for Purple Wave already. Looks like we're getting a gateway as well. Adias is going for a non-walled off opening, getting his first barracks in the gas. Pretty good timing there. We've got the assimilator coming down and now the cyber core already for Purple Wave. All pretty standard stuff to see. Good scouting going through the middle, checking for the proxy. And the probe scout finding the main and then being met by Mr. Marine. So now we've got Adias doing what it normally does, planting that bunker up at the natural in preparation for taking its natural. Oh, accidentally muted the game instead of slowing it down. So Purple Wave is taking his natural as well as coming to pressure with a goon. See what's going on. Adias is now taking his natural as well. The goon currently outranging the Marines in the bunker, as long as it positions itself properly, which it seems to be struggling a little bit to do. So tank is out now, but no siege mode yet, or it's just about to complete. Poking out a little further than he should have with the siege tank, but in the end, siege mode is finished now, so this should be a very defensible position. Oh, and it looks like just barely... those goons were just out of the range there for a moment, but they wandered a little too close into range. Meanwhile, behind this, Adias is getting the some turrets for detection in the main, I believe. Purple Wave is just pumping out more goons right now. Looks like he does have 2 Stargates and a fleet beacon, so we'll see some carrier play off of 2 base. This is refreshing to see too, because most of the bots that we see go carrier tend to just like kind of get a bunch of cannons to defend themselves, whereas Purple Wave is actually going for dragoons to defend itself prior to the carriers coming out. Now, Adias is getting its armory, which is good for upgrades, getting the academy for scans so it can safely move out in case of Dark Templar plays. Looks like Purple Wave is also scouting, or perhaps... yeah, it looks like scouting, interestingly, with dragoon, or sorry, not with dragoons, but with probes. Adias is just sitting in what feels like a pretty defensible position here, but does not know that carriers are coming, although it is now getting a Goliath already. It may have actually scanned the carriers play at this point, because it does have the... yeah, it looks like it's used that scan. More than likely it has done it to scan the main, to scout and see what was going on. So here we've pretty good sizable Dragoon army, gonna be able to at least slow down any push that Adias tries to make. But probably not gonna be able to break that. Pretty nice spread on the tanks here from Adias, plus the nice little mines up front. Heard another scan go off. Looks like more scouting from Purple Wave and getting the top left established, though Adias managed to get some vultures out. Gonna get some juicy probe kills here in the top right. Gonna clear that out. I think that's probably a pylon up there, but the carrier will come and clean this up. Vultures cannot shoot grenades up in the air. Meanwhile, Adias is attempting to push. You'd like to see Adias maybe clear out its own mines, because right now if something landed down there and popped those mines up, that would be bad news, but gonna be able to hold this, push Purple Wave across the bridge, and down below. Interesting pylon choice. This is not StarCraft 2, you cannot warp your units into the Psi field, but sometimes just having like an extra building can help with messing with the AI of units, though usually more in human play than bot play. But here we have now the carriers are coming into play. A very large Goliath count, since the carriers were most likely scouted, so Adias is not surprised by this at all, but now the carriers instead of engaging with the push, have decided to counterattack, which probably is going to give Audius some trouble. Meanwhile, we also have this fight going on here, so it's kind of hard to choose which one to focus on, but the carriers are definitely putting in some work. Goliaths, though, are chasing this one down. I don't think it has any more interceptors. Meanwhile, Audius is going to slowly push into this natural. Depends on how well Purple Wave can kind of slow this down and how much damage he can do with his carriers, if he'll be alright in this fight. Trying to rebuild the bunker and the turret, even though it's not producing Marines at this point, so far as I know, so the bunker really could have just been not done, and still rebuilding it again. Meanwhile, Purple Wave now managed to, it looks like, clean up any Goliaths that were with these tanks, and is now pushing this back, and those tanks are going to fall back because they realize that they can't do much against the carriers. But I don't know, this I think is going to be too many carriers. I mean, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can pump out 5 Goliaths at a time, which it's doing 3, it looks like, and 2 Vultures, when really it should probably just be pumping nothing but Goliaths. It is putting up a good try here, trying to, it looks like, target the carriers where it can. For some reason, that engineering base seems to think it's a carrier, but I think this is looking like a very good position for Purple Wave to be in right now. Pretty good carrier count here. We've got 7 of them. Now there is a little bit of like an attempt of a push here, but one carrier is going to be able to clean that up because there's no anti-air, although just nice little dance going on there. Meanwhile, these carriers are just cleaning up any Goliaths that come out. Is establishing a third down here, but once that third is found, going to be in some serious trouble. Really, probably, and it just keeps throwing like 3 Goliaths at a time into this here. Also, Purple Wave is dangerously low on money. Nice drop by Audius that happened at some point. I missed it. One of the troubles with this replay viewer is not having the vision and seeing that dropship go across the map. But wiping out the main while these carriers... I did not see that drop. That was pretty sneaky. I was just like, why is Purple Wave's money so low? Well, because his main was basically destroyed. I think Audius can maybe win this if he can destroy Purple Wave's base fast enough. Which the natural is gone. It looks like this is a base race that Audius should win at this point. But, and he is attacking this top left now. So it really depends on what he decides to do now. Purple Wave is out of workers, out of Nexus buildings. So it is down to the 7 carriers and 41 interceptors. That drop. Oh, but it's just the 2 vultures hitting the buildings up here. So that might be a little bit for... Oh, okay, now here comes the rest of Audius's army. Very good game between these two. Like I said, nice to see the opener being something other than cannons into carriers. But just the nice drop into the main by Audius was enough to turn this around. Floating barracks there with the mine. And this game is going to be... or turn out into Audius's favor. Very good game for the first one. Oh. I thought this was going to be over, and then... Hold up. Could Purple Wave win this? I don't know if Audius knows that that pylon's there. He almost saw it. I don't think he knows it's there. He sees this one. So I think these pylons are meant to just block expansions. Oh, okay, it's been found now, so now this is probably going to be the game. But the random pylons almost wanted for Purple Wave there. keeping it alive a little bit longer for its carriers to work, and that is the GG. So for the next game, we have a bot that I've not seen before, looks new on the ladder, Ahoy. And I do apologize for probably butchering the pronunciation here, but it is posted by a student from Sungkyul University. So I'm excited to see what it's capable of doing here. It is a Zerg bot, spawning as the blue Zerg here in the top left of La Mancha, with Tomas Vida being the red Protoss in the top right. And I chose its game against Tomas to take a look at because Tomas is one of those like rite of passage bots for newer authors, because it does do the cannons into the carriers off of 2 base, and so being able to overcome that is definitely a rite of passage. Now it looks like it does not have worker defense to defend against this harass, and it is going 5 pool. So I wonder, although it's getting a gas now, so that is interesting to see. That's not something that you would normally do with just a 5 pool. And it is scouting here. It did find it's going to lose this Overlord. Oh, just barely survives. Oops, with 8 hit points left. Very funny to see. The Zerglings, though, seem to be stuck chasing the scouting probe. And it is now gathering gas. My guess is it's trying to do a 5 pull where it would then get speed. But it was probably thrown off by the harassing probe scout. And at this point, I think Tomas is probably going to be in a position to take care of this. We'll just kind of speed up the chase there as Tomas goes ahead and continues to work its way up to the carriers. As the little chase scene down here in the bottom left on the minimap continues. Oh, and then it actually ended from the SSCAIT end trigger, where if no unit is killed after so much time, the game will end, and then the player with the higher unit kill building raising score will win, which was more than likely Tomas. So we did not get to the point of having carriers. Let's see if we can find another game. Because what I'm curious about with Hope Park is the fact that it did open up with a very quick pull, but that it also got the gas. So I'm wondering if it's against an opponent that does not harass its workers, what it's going to do with that. So for the second game with Hope Park, we're going to take a look at Hope Park in the top left here as the red Zerg against Nightcat T as the white Terran in the bottom left of Circuit Breakers. So it looks like Hope Park is again opening up with the 5 pull, which is something that you do see commonly with newer bots that are Zerg. 5 pull is pretty easy to implement, and a lot of bots are very bad at defending against it. Nightcat T can sometimes defend pretty well against it, and other times not. And Hope Park is going off to scout with the initial drone as well as with its overlord. Meanwhile, Nightcat T is getting her supply depot and now going off to scout. Not getting its barracks yet, but the pull is just going to finish here, and now we are going to see the 3 Zerglings and the barracks start. So it will be interesting. So there's the gas, which is what I was curious about seeing here. And the Zerglings are sitting there. I'm guessing because it has not seen an enemy building yet. They are probably going to sit there until, yep, the enemy is discovered, and now they are going to attack. Will the... Actually, is there even a bunker? It looks like there's... Oh, yeah, okay, there is a bunker being built, although that supply depot is a bit vulnerable. And we'll see here how And now the bunker is going to be attacked. The SCVs are going to come for the repair. And now let's see what Ho Park does. Going to get some more, and then it's probably just going to mine the gas and continue to send Zerglings in until... See, oh, it is getting a lair, though. And now it is attacking the undefended refinery. But now a couple of Marines pop, and they should be able to clean this up. Although, being the author of Nightcat T, I know that with its gas workers having been killed, that's a bit of a problem for it. Because it's never going to replace those. So it will be interesting to see how this goes, but I'm also interested now that it's got this lair. What is Hopart gonna do? Gonna get a Spire. It seems like it's not getting any additional drones. And now Nightcat T is gonna go ahead and expand, which should help it recover. Now I'm wondering what Hopark is going to do. I'm focusing a little bit more on Hopark because the reason I'm watching this game is to see what this new bot will do here. And hopefully this doesn't hit the end of game timeout. Looks like we are going for a third expansion here. With the lack of gas, Nightcat T has quite the influx of minerals. Oh, now it's going to get gas, so now it should be able to get the other production facilities that it was missing. But it's got a nice M&M force here. And it looks like Hopark, I guess, stops there? Go ahead and speed this up. So it looks like it's very much a work in progress. Would like it to see it do something other than the full four-pole opening, but it is nice to see that it does have some activity other than just keep spamming Zerglings and sending them into the enemy. It looks like there is some attempt to follow up after the four-pole, so that's pretty cool to see. Hoping to see more from Hopark in the future. So for the next game, we have another bot that has been updated since the last cast. Nui bot, updated just I think a couple of days after the last cast was broadcast. So excited to see what Nui bot is bringing to the table. Picked a game up against a Megabot from 2017, a pretty decent bot to play against. And we are going out with a drone scout. Looks like we're at 9. We'll see if it's going to be a 9 pull or something else. Looks like we're getting the Overlord. And we are not getting a pull. So we are going to probably do a 12 play with the Zerg. Meanwhile, Megabot is getting his gateway and now his gas. Also, this is on Icarus 1.0. Right now we are getting a 12 pull. Or I think that was a 12 pull, or perhaps a 13 pull. Which I think seems a little bit off from a build order perspective, but Megabot has scouted all of the bases, or no, just the bottom and the left. Now he's going to scout Nuibot's base, and we are getting an interestingly positioned hatchery up here in the corner. And we're getting the worker harass that is not being defended against. But there are no Zerglings right now. And now another hatchery is coming down. So this probe is going to be a bit of a problem for Nuibot. We've also got one Dragoon on the way, with 2 more coming out, and no Zerglings in sight, which I find to be interesting, that there's no defensive units being built. We've got now a 3rd hatchery coming down. Not sure what is going on here. This is not what I expected to see. There is a sunken colony being morphed, but I think it is too little too late. So, two things I think that NuiBot needs to work on, at least in this particular matchup, is maybe getting some Zerglings early on instead of putting all of your minerals into hatcheries like that. So that way you can defend against the worker if you're not going to go ahead, the worker scout, if you're not going to go ahead and program your workers to defend themselves, as well as perhaps adding that code for the workers to defend themselves. We'll go ahead and check out another NuiBot game just to see if we see this same behavior or if this was just a fluke perhaps in this matchup. So for the next game with NuiBot, we're going on Heartbreak Ridge with NuiBot, the white Zerg on the left side of the map, and MadMixT, the purple Terran, on the right. And I did a refresher on the game that NuiBot had on the last week's cast, and it was a ZVZ. So I'm wondering what its ZVT looks like, if we'll see sort of the same behavior in this matchup as we did in the ZVP. Now we are seeing something different here. It looks like it is going for a 4-pull here, which is, I believe, what we saw last week. We'll see if MadMixT is able to defend against this or not. And the Zerglings are going to pop out of here soon. First set is out, although it looks a little bit off because it's only 4 Zerglings instead of 6. And there's the other pair, so a little bit of larva mismanagement there. For some reason, it got an Overlord way sooner than it needs to, and they were waiting for another set there, which is a bit odd. Usually with a 5-pull, you would want to save your larva so that you can pop 6 Zerglings at once, and then move with all of them, and then you don't even worry about the Overlord until after at least that set and maybe one more. So this number of Zerglings, and then you would start to build an Overlord. But now let's see. Pull in some of the SCVs. We'll go ahead and slow it down, zoom in a little bit here, just to check out the micro. So going after the workers now, which is a nice thing to see, and also targeting the Marines where it can. Some running from the damaged Marines. And now some fresh ones coming out, though this seems to be pretty well handled by MadMixT. Letting this take some hits, perhaps choosing workers. It could choose other ones. Nice. I like the repairs on the workers there, but might not be able to handle the stream of Zerglings here. So we've just kind of got a constant stream coming in, which is going to require some trying to run that Marine and trying to kite as best as it can and get shots off. But I think MadMixT is going to be supply blocked, potentially, but the Marines are dying, so that's a bit of a problem for him. Actually, probably should not have built this supply depot. Needed to spend that money on the Marines. And now NuiBot is transitioning out, getting a second hatchery and a creep colony here, which is now, well, sunken now. But so this looks like very similar play to the ZVZ game that we saw last week. Difficult to see what has been updated in it, but it's always nice to see active bot development in general. And with newer bots too. And we'll go ahead and speed this up because this is looking to be decided. Yep, he's now out of money or workers. I'm just wondering what these Marines are doing. They're abandoning ship and slowly dying. Meanwhile, NuiBot is going to drone up more, which is good to see. Transition out of the 5-pull. Sending out a drone as well, and that will be the game for NuiBot. And the next couple of updated bots since last week, we have Steamhammer, the yellow Zerg in the top right of Benzene, and Crazio, the blue Terran in the bottom left, both bots having been updated. So this should be an exciting match to see. Both are known to be strong bots. Crazio always, if not the top bot in ELO on the bot ladder, is usually second. I think maybe once I saw it down the third, back when I think it was Saida first hit the scene, is when that may have happened, but I also may be misremembering that. So this is on Benzene, a 2-player map. Both of the players know where each other are, but they're still going to send a scout to see what exactly they're up to. The Overlord and the SCV see each other, say hi, wave to each other, and then say goodbye, and say one of us, or both of us, will probably be dead by the end of this. And now a drone is going out as well. Don't think that is necessary if you're sending your Overlord, but perhaps the drone will get information faster for Steamhammer than the Overlord will, and you can always park the Overlord in a couple of places to continue to gather information on your opponent. And here we do have a fast natural with a spawning pool coming out. Steamhammer is very good at following pretty decent build orders. Very defensive placement of the barracks, throwing them far into the back of the base by Crazio here. Getting a couple of Marines out, not sure what... Oh, that SCV is probably scouting for something. Or probably came up here to scout for like some kind of proxy play, and then is having pathing difficulties getting back into the main. Hopefully that will not cost Crazio anything. We do have the first Zerglings from Steamhammer coming out, but there should be plenty enough Marines to handle these Zerglings. Going for a 2 racks slow expand play against Zerg, which is something that you don't see too commonly. One sunken, and that's a bit odd to have a sunken in the main. There's no reason to have that at this point against Terran. Unless you think the Terran is going mech and may try to do a run by, but then you should probably just keep your Zerglings back, or some back, to keep any vultures from running past the sunken that you build. And maybe trying to wall a bit up here, getting your third hatchery instead of in the main, getting it down here to help make a more difficult path for the vultures to try and run by. But it looks like we are going to see an aggressive 1-base play from Crazio off of 2 barracks. He's got the Marine medic push. This is the time when you would want to see sunken or spore colonies go down. Actually, probably when the Marines moved out to here is when they should have been started. Probably at least 2 or 3, so that way you'd have 3 to 4 sunkens finishing just as this Marine medic group gets there. Now, why the Marine medic group is delaying itself, I'm not exactly sure, as too much is going into tech here for Steamhammer, really leaving himself vulnerable. We do have a factory now started for Crazio, still on the 1 base, so this is a hyper-aggressive build. Sort of engaging there and losing Zerglings for no reason. You could argue that, oh, it's delaying the Terran, but a sunken or a spore colony or creep colony has just started for Steamhammer now in the natural. Really going to need more than that to defend, although I think Crazio might be waiting for tanks before really wanting to push in, which I think is not the strongest play, but the way that Steamhammer is playing, it seems like it's probably not going to matter. This force should be able to take what's here right now, and this delaying is letting Steamhammer get defenses that he just should not have. Now, Mutalisks are finally out in play, but their numbers are going to be a bit on the lower side. There are, I think, 7 here right now, and 8 now, it looks like, which is pretty decent, but this is still a sizable M&M force, which, unless they're positioned poorly, which they kind of are right now, because of this bridge, there's not as much room for them to play with. They could probably take some damage from the Mutalisks, and the Mutalisks could have been sniping maybe the Vulture or something there, but they're just kind of playing a little too safe, not wanting to take any damage. So now there are some coming for the main, but there are some turrets. It will be interesting to see how that plays out, because really with those Mutalisks not back at home, This M&M force, though, now might struggle because now there are the number of sunken colonies that I was talking about needing before. I feel like these Mutalisks should not pull back. It should probably just dive into the base to try and do some damage, but now this is going to be tough. I guess maybe they did need to come home, so pretty decent fight going on here. Targeting the Marines, taking them out in one shot with the stacked mutas is great to see. But it looks like we're just getting vultures. Burrow is being done, and there is a den coming out. Back out here. And the task force of Crazio is looking a bit smaller here, but still threatening the Zerg. Meanwhile, a drone did manage to sneak out and get a third base down here in the bottom right corner. And the vultures decided to go off and explore and check for those type of things, but it's going the wrong way to find it in this case. Scan there just to see if there's any expansion there. Tank is coming up. I'm not sure if siege mode has been researched yet or not, but if it has, the Zerg is going to be in a bit of trouble. It's lost a few too many of its Mutalisks. Yep, siege mode is researched. So, gonna be able to handle the Sunkens up here more than likely. Picking off a few Marines here and there. Really should probably be picking off this tank and the SCV that is there to repair it, as the Marines were out of position to defend the tank. But it is really hard for bots to handle that type of thing and understand that type of situation to know the angle that they should come from to be best in this situation. Now this base has been discovered, this base has also been discovered, so Steamhammer effectively down to 2 bases. Crazio just taking his natural now. So a little bit of misplays from both bots on this, I think, but really the misplays from Steamhammer cost him the most. And Steamhammer just not able to capitalize on the time that Crazio gave it, that it probably should not have. Now, it is going to take a minute, probably, to break this. Lurkers are out now, but with the tanks and now the Wraiths, Steamhammer just doesn't have a way to deal with this Terran army. And with these 2 expansions shut down, it's basically just down up to the 2 bases against now the Terrans' 2 bases, with the natural having finished up. Steamhammer's Overlords, for some reason, flying out to the front, which has now supply blocked it, so I think this game is going to pretty much be over and go in favor of Crazio. Let this go a little bit faster here. Crazio is now expanding, taking the top left. Slowly marching into the main. And now it's just a matter of cleaning this up. There are Sunkens being morphed in the main as the last, or Spores actually. I thought those were going to be Sunkens to try and be a last-minute defense, and then Steamhammer taps out for the GG on this one. Good game by Crazio. So for our next matchup, we have both bots spawning in troublesome positions for me on La Mancha. We have Lucas Moravik on the bottom left here, and we have TR Protoss on the bottom right here. Lucas also had an update since the last week, so I thought we would go ahead and check it out in a game. And TR Protoss is a pretty good Protoss as well. Figured that would be a good opponent for them. Now, this is going to be a little awkward for me to cast because of the spawn positions both being lower, with the overlay being in the way for one spot and the map for the other, but we'll make do. So we've got Pylon coming down for Lucas. Tier is... I'm not quite sure what Tier is doing. Oh, there we go. Okay. That probe was just kind of sitting there and waiting for a while. Perhaps it was thinking about what build it wanted to do, or had to ask its chat what race its opponent was. It looks like he is going for a Forge fast expand. Yep. Meanwhile, Lucas is going 2 gates, which I think puts Lucas in the stronger position here. It may depend on how many cannons Tier actually gets. So we've got a... Yep, 2-3 cannons it looks like, which should be pretty good, but depends on how fast they finish. They should finish in time, though, at least the first 2. And Lucas, while he got the 2 gateways, only seems to be producing out of 1. Up, and for a second was producing out of both. And now, yep, Tyr is just getting cannons to keep alive from this 2 gate that which he has scouted. And Lucas is just getting more of the pylons so that way he can produce more units. Meanwhile, Tyr is also getting more pylons for more workers and looks like going to take his natural. Meanwhile, Lucas is also able to take his natural with thanks to the zealots that he has. And he's also getting that gas very early. Not going to be able to mine effectively from it for a little bit until that Nexus finishes. And now we do have 2 gateways coming down for Tyr, which is a little interesting to see. I would have thought maybe we'd see 1 gateway and then some tech, since he does have the cannons to protect him, and could probably just produce Dragoons off of 1 gateway to supplement those cannons for a little bit there, though the Dragoons I don't think have a path out. I do not think they can fit between that forge and that bit of ground there. So I'm curious as to what Tyr is going to be going for here. Speed things up a little bit as the skies go crazy. Maybe bring the overlay back for a short bit here. Nope. Couple of zealots being lost in this dance. He's just slowly sacrificing zealots to the cannons of Tyr unnecessarily. Probably the cannons are going in and out of vision, and so his decision to attack or retreat is changing much faster than it should. Now deciding to stay back. Yep, I think that is what's happening here, because it looks like when the 5th zealot comes in, they start to march in more than now that they're damaged. I bet once another zealot comes in, he's going to march forward again. Meanwhile, he is expanding towards his opponent, which is a really aggressive move and interesting to see. Would have thought that perhaps the more appropriate choice in this case would have been to expand away from your opponent. But throwing those zealots away, meanwhile, both are getting upgrades. Tyr is getting the now they're both getting Dragoon range, although Tyr's will finish first, as well as the +1 weapon upgrade. Tyr is also getting an Observer and a robotic support pay. Meanwhile, Lucas is getting the Citadel of Adun. So the 3rd is going to mine and be somewhat productive as Tyr is sitting back, teching and building up its army. Lucas just throwing away more units to the cannon army. Would be much better to have sat back. He could have had a much stronger force at this point. Gateways in the natural. Yep, just throwing, not even attacking. I don't think any cannon... Oh, the forge took a hit, and now the cannon took a hit. But yeah, just throwing too many units away to the cannons, which is just very unfortunate to see. And now Tyr is creating a path out for his units. Now the Dragoons, destroying all of the cannons. But now the Dragoons are going to be able to flood out, and I don't think Lucas is going to be able to stop this massive army, especially when the supply gap is 146 to 73, marching past the 3rd. But now some of them are engaging in it. There's a somewhat decent Dragoon army back here at home, and High Templar are out, but I don't think they're going to be able to do much. Just too many units thrown away, which is just unfortunate to see to the cannons. But that type of logic is really hard to get correct in a bot, because you need to have some type of memory that, hey, there was a unit there, because once it falls into the fog of war, you can't access it anymore. And so that can just be really tricky to get right, because if it's something like a mobile unit, then, you know, it possibly could have moved. Or if you're trying to code for maybe even having multiple opponents in a match or something like that, then another opponent could have potentially killed it. So it's just very tricky to get right. But a lot of the times bots, when they attempt to decide, can I win an engagement or not, they're not, either they haven't properly implemented their memory of things that fall out of fog, or they haven't implemented it at all. So once something goes out of fog, they figure, oh, you know, it's not going to attack anymore, which can cause situations like this. And I'm assuming it's something related to that. I could be completely wrong, but I was just unfortunate to see, and that will be the game. Lucas taps out after losing his main to Tier Protoss. So for our next match, we have Brian Weber, which has also been very recently updated, up against Steamhammer. Again, a bot that we casted in an earlier game with a recent update as well, and a ZVZ match on Circuit Breakers. So I think depending on how long this game lasts, we probably have enough time for 1 or 2 matches. So we'll see what we are able to get in here. Because there's one other bot that has updated recently that I'd like to show a game for. It will just depend on the timing for this. So we are seeing a gas first from Steamhammer with no spawning pool. Interesting to see. And then we are getting the spawning pool. Interested to see what it will do with its gas, if it will pull workers off for that speed or what. Also, the drone count is it's growing. It is getting drones. So now it's floating gas, and then it's going to get speed, which seems to be a little bit inefficient. Maybe the spawning pool drone had got trapped, although now Lair is actually going for Steamhammer, so maybe this is going to be like a rush to Spire, perhaps. Brian Weber, meanwhile, now is scouting, is getting its speed almost done, and pulled its gas gatherers off very quickly after that. Lucky for Steamhammer that Brian Weber is scouting in the incorrect directions for the moment. Sees that there is nothing there. And then going to get scouted by 2 Zerglings with nothing at home to defend against it. Gonna have to pull them back. As now Zerglings start to peel in, though, able to cut off the reinforcements. Should be able to keep this hatchery, but just barely. Yep, just barely, with very few hit points. Able to save it, although these 2 could come in and maybe snipe it, but they're just going to do a dance. And now Brian Weber able to deduce where Steamhammer is, going to come in, and yep, it is a quick early Spire. If he can hold it off, he will have an advantage now. He does have more Zerglings. The Spire, or actually, no, second hatchery is started. I can't click on it because of how zoomed out I am, I guess. There we go. But either way, more Zerglings coming in for Steamhammer. The Spire might not even actually come into play. I think this natural is going to fall here. Brian Weber just making the decision to get Hydralisks and a macro hatch, which kind of hurt it. Probably should have invested more in Zerglings in order to defend the natural. Although the Hydralisks probably to defend against Mulisks would be good, but they are coming a little too late now. Or actually, he was just getting lurkers. Although the suicide into Steamhammer's main to get the workers seems to have worked out very well. 1 drone does survive. Steamhammer does have 300 minerals to 600 gas. The workers trying to stay hidden, but no money, no gas to get any anti-air. And unfortunately for Brian Weber, the game is not going to go his way. Just some scattered overlords. Although actually in these 2 Zerglings, I don't know, this might be a little bit of a base race, but I think it's going to be tough. Brian Weber has more buildings with more hit points, but only 2 Zerglings. I honestly don't know who's going to win this. All Steamhammer would have to do is pull back his 3 Mutalisks. I don't know where that 3rd one actually came from. I think the Mutalisks are going to clean up Brian Weber's base faster. I don't think I can zoom out enough, yeah, to get everything in. I just noticed that the overlay was kind of in the way here. But yeah, so this is up a couple more. There's two more Zerglings going to join the fight. It really depends on how well this hatchery that I have selected can last and how fast these four. They just target. Brian Weber might actually get a win out of this because the Mutalisks are going after units instead of buildings in this space race. That poor larva. And Brian Weber takes the win in a very bizarre base race that shouldn't have happened. GG for Brian Weber there, picking up a nice win and some ELO points. Actually, no, not ELO points because ELO is based on Basil and not SSCAIT, but it's the same bots playing on it for the most part. So good game by Brian Weber there. Like I said, ZVZ is a pretty tough matchup. Usually if you make one wrong decision, you're going to be punished severely, and in this instance we saw Brian Weber go for that macro hatch as well as the Hydralisk stand for lurkers, which allowed Steamhammer to actually just outproduce in Zerglings and kill the natural and threaten the main. And then the Mutalisks came out and the Hydralisk was being morphed into lurker, I think, or actually Hydralisk might not have even been spawned. I think it was just getting a lurker aspect. So it was an interesting matchup. Good to see Brian Weber picking up a win there in that base race. Very interesting game. Well played. So for the last game for this week, we have McRave Z, which has seen a recent update up against the Protoss McRave, just named McRave, on Destination, with McRave Protoss being on the bottom and McRave Zerg being on the top. And I know the author of McRave has been putting a lot of effort into McRave Z lately, so I'm excited to see what the latest updates are able to do. And so we do have the Overlord Scout going at an interesting angle towards the Protoss base. McRave, again, a very, very strong bot in the Protoss category, as Sonka said last week. The Zerg one is coming along pretty well as well. So we do have I believe that was a 9 pull right now based on the supply, and the drone scout going out now, going up to 11 drones before any other buildings. Looks like we're going for a natural hatchery. Now we do see the 2 gateways being done, I believe, unless the drone has just stopped at the pylon, and now it's going to be a little bit chased around and then park. It really likes that pylon apparently. And we do have the natural hatchery down, and now gas coming down for McRave, as well as some Zerglings for defense. And a drone chasing the probe. Probably not necessarily. That drone could probably be better spent when you're Zerg mining, especially when you only have like 6 actively mining at the moment. Actually 7 now, because pulled off from gas once speed started. So the Zerglings are coming down to say hello, but there is a nice 4 Zealot wall, now 5 Zealot strong wall there. I don't think the Zerglings are going to be able to poke through that, but for the moment they do keep the Protoss at home. Now why the Zealots abandoned the ramp, I'm not entirely sure, but they've decided, screw that, I don't want to fight those Zerglings, I'm going home. And a lot more Zerglings coming down to join the party now. Perhaps they knew something I did not. But really, with the ramp held, if they just stay there, the Zergling count should not be able to overwhelm this Protoss force, at least not without a large loss. So losing a couple Zerglings there that are poking up. Now the Dragoons are out, and the Zerglings are going to back off and give some space. A 3rd gateway is done, and now a 4th, so this looks like a 4-gate play from McRave here. Can't really expand due to the large number of Zerglings behind it, and all that the Zerg is doing right now is pumping lings. So, but it's only on 2 hatch, pretty low economy, so, and it's getting nothing but Zerglings and Overlord, so this may be an all-in, but it's not doing much with it. It really needs to transition, I think, to something else, or this is not going to go well for McRave Z. Just kind of watch that production tab as I can. Goon range is about to finish. Probably once that finishes, we may see the Protoss move out. Nope, we're going to see a Protoss retreat from his ramp again, and now move back. Looks like he wants to expand, so now he is going to try and push these Zerglings back. The Dragoons are going to struggle a bit with this ramp, but I think they're going to ultimately be able to come down. and push that out. Meanwhile, McRave Z is still just producing Zerglings. Now using that bridge to its advantage, whether it means to or not, I'm not exactly sure. Scaring off those Zerglings, still a large number of Zerglings there for McRave Z, but really needs to transition to something else, get some economy going, because now you've got a 2-base Protoss, and just pure Speedlings with no upgrades is not going to be able to handle an established 2-base Protoss, especially one with 4. It's been pumping off of 4 gateways. 4 Zealots and a Dragoon dancing in the main for some reason. They're just kind of throwing a party of some sort there, I suppose. A decent number of Zerglings chilling in the middle of the map, and this probe almost encountering them and deciding not to encounter them. But also can't quite get home safely and is... okay, dancing around. I guess we've hit a critical mass of Zerglings as McRave Z is going to rush in here, but really McRave should be able to defend this. Yeah, able to scare off those Zerglings, and now we do have a 3rd hatchery coming down, so perhaps we will see either some sort of transition, or we might just see more Zerglings pop out, because we are still just at 7 drones. It's a bit interesting. Now the Corsair is out, so that's going to spell the end of the Overlords, though we do have an evolution chamber coming down now, so he will be able to get a spore colony to protect future. Probably should have spread out his Overlords here, because they're all just going to die to this Corsair, who's going to get a decent kill count. We'll keep a selection on him and watch that. Meanwhile, the McRave is going to try and push across this bridge here. That's still a large number of Zerglings, but the Protoss army is probably ultimately stronger. 2 kills now for the Corsair, as McRave Z is now supply blocked, forcing it to bank some minerals. Does have the evolution chamber down now, probably needs to throw down spore colony, creep colony, and then a spore colony in order to protect some new Overlords, but instead it is just producing the new Overlords, which are then going to die. But it does have the large Zergling army here protecting it from imminent death. Meanwhile, the Dragoons dancing rather interestingly back home. More Corsairs being pumped, so McRave Z is going to just kind of be stuck trying to produce Overlords and then having them hunted down. Meanwhile, McRave looks like trying to get that probe home or just scouting with it. These two... Oh, timeout on 85 milliseconds. So it looks like this game... While McRave Z was losing, it looks like McRave Z took home the win because McRave timed out. SSCAIT does have limits on how long a frame can be, and if you have so many frames over 85 milliseconds, which would be lagging in the game, you will be dropped and it will count as a loss for you, and it looks like that happened here, probably with all of the Dragoons dancing around in the natural. So it was an interesting game to see. McRave Z probably could have used a transition out of this Ling all in a bit sooner, or at least something to, or perhaps logic to get the anti-air before trying to rebuild its Overlords, so that way it would have an area where they would be protected. But overall, a good game to watch, and a good set of games. It's always great to see a lot of development going on. Well, it's getting updated all the time. There's even how Pan had received an update, which I did not have time to cast a game from them, unfortunately. But thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.